Hi, second graders. We're going to continue with our chapter book, The Magic Trap. Hope you enjoy it. Usually Jessie loved school, like you guys, especially on Mondays. She loved walking into the classroom first thing and finding the morning worksheet of math problems waiting for her on her desk. Like I know you like your morning work. She loved talking to her teacher, Mrs. Overton, and hearing about what her cat Langston had done over the weekend. She loved reading and writing and science and social studies, but most of all, she loved taking quizzes because she always got 100%. And that was the best that you could get. Jessie liked knowing that she was the best at some things. It helped even out other things that she wasn't so good at. But today she couldn't wait for the school day to end. The day had gotten off to a bad start. Her father hadn't gotten up early enough to make breakfast for them. In fact, he hadn't gotten up at all by the time they headed out the door. It's not that Jessie needed anyone to make her breakfast. She knew how to pour herself a bowl of cereal. She knew how to get herself dressed. She knew how to put the toast in the toaster. But her dad had bought these special bagels from the deli several towns away, almost in the city, and she had really wanted one, cut in half and toasted with cream cheese. Sounds good. But Jessie wasn't allowed to cut a bagel by herself. Even Evan wasn't allowed to use the heavy bread knife. If her mom had been home, she would have had the bagel ready for Jessie by the time she came downstairs dressed and had her hair combed. Then her mom would have helped her with her ponytail. Instead, she had gone to school with several weird bumps in her hair. Jessie also wanted the day to end because she wanted to get home and work on the latest edition of the 4-0 Forum. She thought the front page story about the magic show would drum up some business for ticket sales. Plus, there was going to be a special section on the weather, including an article on how to prepare for a storm emergency. Jessie always included the month's weather station in the 4-0 Forum. She loved collecting the data from the school weather station. At the beginning of the year, the fourth graders used to fight about who got to climb out onto the flat roof of the gym and write down the data from the thermometer and look at the weather vane and the rain gauge that they were mounted there. But now that the school year was almost over, she and David were the only two who still vied for the privilege. That means they wanted to do it. Mrs. Overton had told them that the weather instruments were going to do some very strange things because of the tropical storm forming over the Bahamas, and that they should all keep a weather eye out. Already the air was hot and sticky. There was no wind at all. It was as if the air had been sucked out by the atmosphere, and everything was heavy and still. Mostly Jessie wanted the day to end because she wanted to ask Evan if he would let her in the magic show. Yesterday she had told him that she wanted to be his assistant, and he had said, "We'll see." So today she wanted to see. "I'm home," she shouted as she came through the front door, but nobody answered. Usually her mom was in the kitchen waiting for her to walk in the door. But of course her mom wouldn't be there today. She was in San Francisco and wouldn't get back until Saturday at noon. Today was only Monday. That meant 5 more days. Jessie checked the kitchen counter for a note. No note. Evan, she knew, was helping his friend Ryan carrying home his social studies project, which was a Lego creation of a village in the 1700s. It took 2 people to carry this thing, or all the wigwams would slide off the edge of the foam core. Jessie turned on the kitchen computer and then pulled out a Jell-O cup out of the refrigerator. She'd had an idea in school that day about how she would convince Evan to let her be his magician's assistant for the show. She sat down at the computer and typed her question into Google. How do I catch a rabbit? Jessie didn't really like animals. She didn't like the way they smelled, or that they went pee or poop unexpectedly, or the way they would sometimes growl or hiss, even if you were trying to be nice. When she saw a dog walking down the street, she crossed to the other side. When she was at the house of someone who had a cat, she kept her arms crossed and her hands tucked under her armpits, safe and sound out of the way. And horses? Jessie wouldn't get within 20 feet of a horse. One kick and you'd be in the hospital with a broken cranium. But Evan needed a rabbit, and Jessie wanted to be in his show. Maybe they would work something out. The front door groaned open and Evan walked into the kitchen, slinging his backpack to the floor in the front hallway. Mom says put it away, said Jessie. Mom's not here, growled Evan. Still, you should, said Jessie. She wouldn't rattle on Evan. They almost never did that to each other. But Mom had promised to call every afternoon at 4 o'clock, and it was tempting. Then Jessie had a different idea. I'll put it away for you, she said. Evan shrugged as if he didn't care, but Jessie could tell he was wondering what was up. She dragged his enormous backpack to the mudroom off of the garage, where they kept their coats and shoes. They were allowed to dump their backpacks there. When they came back into the kitchen, Evan was heading upstairs with a big bag of Doritos and the whole container of orange juice. When Jessie saw that, she had to bite her tongue to keep from reminding him that they weren't allowed to eat in their rooms. She followed him silently. So, can I be your magician's assistant? She asked when they got to Evan's room. I'll think about it, said Evan, as he set up the small, round, folding table he had brought up from the basement the day before. He was going to use it to prop his table, which is exactly what an assistant would be in charge of. But you said that yesterday, said Jessie. Well, I'm saying it again today. But why can't I? I didn't say you can't. I said I'd think about it. That's like saying no, and that's what grown-ups do. Between Evan and Jessie, there was no worse insult. Evan flipped the table upright, then pressed on it once to make sure the legs would hold. He looked right at her. Here's the thing, Jess. You gotta be, smooth to be an assistant. You have to be really quick and perfect, and you can't flub up. The whole show will be ruined if you make even one mistake. I won't, I promise you. I'll practice and practice. Just show me how, and I'll do everything right. Jessie really wanted to be on the stage. She wanted everyone to see how good she was and applaud. And she wanted to trick everyone with the magic, knowing the answer to how something was done when everyone else didn't. But mostly, she wanted to do something with Evan. They used to do all kinds of things together, have lemonade stands and build marble tracks and play games like Yahtzee or Clue. But nowadays, he always had other things to do. It seemed as if he had changed so much, gotten older and more serious, more like the grown-ups, and Jessie didn't like that. I don't know, said Evan. This show it's important. It's not a kid thing. Jessie nodded her head. She knew it was important. First, because they could make a lot of money, and money was important, well, at least to Jessie. Second, their dad was going to see it, and she wanted to impress him so he'd know that she and Evan were really good at things. They weren't just babies. They were the kind of kids a dad would want to have. What if I get a rabbit? Jessie blurted out. Then will you make me be your assistant? Evan gave him a look, which meant he thought she was being a silly kid, and he was so much older. Jessie knew that look. Boy, did she know that look. How you gonna do that? He said, folding his arms across his chest. I've got it all figured out, Mr. Blister. Don't you worry. But is it a deal? Evan waved one hand. Yeah, sure. You get me a rabbit and I'll make you my assistant. Shake, said Jessie, holding out her hand. Yeah, said Evan, quickly shaking her hand and then getting back to his table. Good luck, little sister. Oh, I don't need luck, said Jessie. I'm a trustee, which is something her dad used to say to them when they were little, before he left. The Google instructions looked easy. There was even a diagram. That's how I think she's going to trap the rabbit. She needed a box that was big enough to cover a rabbit and heavy enough that a rabbit couldn't knock it over. Then she needed a stick that was forked on one end so that the edge of the box could rest on it, and a piece of string that would pull the stick away when it was yanked. The last thing she needed was some kind of food for bait. A carrot seemed like the best option, but Jessie thought celery would do as well. It all seemed pretty simple. One trap would do the trick. But since she needed a rabbit in a hurry, she decided to set 5 traps. Luckily, the basement was filled with cardboard boxes of all shapes and sizes. Mrs. Tresky was a bit of a nut about recycling. So I'm going to stop there and have you think, I wonder if it's going to work. And she has 5 boxes she's going to set out as traps. I wonder if they'll have 0 rabbits or all the way up to 5 rabbits. We will find out. Bye.